Hi, you've reached Tim and Gabrielle from Excel Talk. We're not able to come to the phone right now, but if you leave a message, we'll be sure to respond by playing your message on our live Excel Talk broadcast. Welcome, everyone, to our second episode of Excel Talk. Gabrielle, we made it to the most difficult part, I think, which is doing the second episode of anything. My name is Tim Rodman, and I run the augforums.com website. I'm also an independent Acumatica consultant focused exclusively on the reporting tools in Acumatica, including third-party tools like Microsoft Excel, Power BI, and Gabrielle's Velixo reporting tool. Gabrielle, go ahead.
Yes, I am the founder of Velixo, Excel fan, and I might say geek. So again, I have my Excel T-shirt today. Been working in the Acumatica space for over 10 years now. I guess that pretty much everyone on this call has worked with one of our products or used something that that you or me have worked on in the last few years, I guess.
And just a reminder for everyone, we're calling this Excel Talk, but we're both Acumatica people, so this is Excel for Acumatica, and that's what we're talking about. And we're using this call-in format. We've got 3 phone calls today. So we started off last month with 1 phone call from my daughter. Thanks for her participation. Now we've got 3 Acumatica people phone calls. But before we get to that, we've got some things we want to talk about up front. And I'm going to start off. The first one is that I am launching, finally, after over 2 years, my first online training course, calling it, thank you. I'm calling it Building Generic Inquiries and Pivot Tables. And, I've heard people that write their first book, they describe it as being much more difficult than they thought it would be. And that was the case with creating a course. I found that it got like exponentially more difficult the more lessons I added, because I had to still keep in mind all the other lessons, but got through it, finally came up with something that I was satisfied with, and I'll be launching that tomorrow. So I'm going to put actually a link in the chat here for anyone who's interested. I'm doing a couple webinars tomorrow. I'm going to put a link to the webinar here. And then second thing I wanted to mention is I did a podcast episode this week with one of the most popular Power BI websites. And it's actually the first Power BI blog from many years ago. And if you're interested in Power BI, it's about an hour and a half, pretty long conversation, but we talk a lot about some of the early days of Power BI, and the guy who hosts it, his name is Rob Colley. And so check that out. I'm going to find a link for while Gabrielle's talking, and I'll put that down in the chat as well.
Yeah, make sure to highlight it, Tim. I highlighted the AUG Forums webinar as well, so you have that on the screen.
Perfect. Yeah. I will highlight that once I get it up.
Good.
Now, Gabrielle, I want to, before I kick it over to you, I want to read your out of office response here.
Oh.
That I'm going to pull up. Let me see if I can find it. Here we go. All right. So I sent Gabrielle an email a few days, maybe a week ago. And here's what I got back. I am currently out of the office and probably chilling somewhere in Brazil. I will return on January 18th. I know I'm supposed to say that I'll have limited access to email, but that's not true. Nonetheless, my goal is to spend more time samba dancing and relaxing on the beach than reading emails. In true Canadian fashion, this is my favorite part, I would like to apologize in advance for the delayed response time. Great out of office. And maybe you could tell us what you were doing in Brazil and how it ties into next week.
I'm glad that you liked it. I had fun typing it. I was looking for something creative and different. I find it very hard to actually switch off while I'm on vacation, and usually the only way I'm able to do that is by going somewhere where like there's no 4G connection, Wi-Fi, or anything within an hour driving distance. But given that I was going away for a few weeks, I knew that I would still have to, do some work, at least make sure that the payroll runs are processed for the team and that all the emergencies are taken care of. So I was actually visiting the in-laws in Brazil. My girlfriend is from Salvador in the northeast of Brazil, and because of all the travel restrictions and COVID, we had been unable to travel for 3 years. So it was very, very stressful in the weeks leading to the trip because pretty much everyone was contracting COVID here. And we do need a negative test to fly to the US and fly to Brazil as well. So we pretty much hunkered down for the last 2 weeks before Christmas. We made it to Brazil, but unfortunately, my samba dancing was interrupted by COVID. I tested positive shortly after my arrival in Brazil. Nothing bad, but again, it disrupted our plans. I decided to extend my trip. Coming back home was another another crazy story. Flights got canceled because of a snowstorm and because of COVID-related staff shortages. And finally, I'm back home. And given that I am recovered, I will be able to travel to Summit. I'm leaving tomorrow. And I am really, really looking forward to meeting our customers, other Acumatica enthusiasts in Vegas. And that actually reminds me that
So actually, before you share about Summit, I just want to thank you for squeezing in Excel talk in between Brazil and Las Vegas. I know you got a lot going on, so thank you for still jumping on today.
Yeah, I came back here in the middle of a huge snowstorm. One of the cars wouldn't start, and now my girlfriend is sick as well. And anyway, it was very challenging, but actually, I'm in a very, very good mood, very energetic now. Maybe it's because I'm finally recovered of this thing. But yeah, like 3 weeks under the sun, very nice weather. Had a pleasant time in Brazil despite COVID, and now I'm here for the call today with you, Tim, and getting ready for Summit. So let's see if I can share my screen here. I just want to bring up 2 slides here.
And in the comments, I'm curious if anyone who's watching right now is going to be at Summit next week. Maybe drop that in the comments there.
Yeah. So I have 2 breakout sessions at the Summit. So I would really like to invite all of you that will be at Summit to join us, even if you already know my product, Velixo. If you're an Excel guru, I think that you will have fun at this session. So we're calling it Making Magic with Excel and Acumatica. So it's a session on Tuesday at 2:15 p.m. I will have a special guest. Actually, he will be with us throughout the summit. So if you stop by at the Velixo booth, he will be there. His name is Joe Skilton. Check it out, joeskilton.com. He is a professional magician. I met him at another trade show in San Francisco in September. And together we will be making magic with Excel and actual magic. So I think this will be fun for everyone. It will be a different presentation than the one I'm usually doing on Excel. Tim, I wish you were there with me.
Yeah, not gonna be able to make it this year. Maybe next year. We'll see.
Yeah. And then I have another. So this one is on Tuesday, and then I have another session on a complete different subject. I know we have some developers joining this call, so this is something for you. I will be presenting in one of the advanced developer sessions. I think in the agenda, it still says advanced developer topics part 1. The topic is on CI/CD, so continuous integration and deployment with Acumatica. I am honored to have been invited by the Acumatica team to present this session. So it's on Monday at 2:55 p.m. And actually, it's not in the Flurry room. This is a mistake. So you will have to check in the session list to find the actual room. But yeah, it's the Advanced Developer session.
Excellent. Well, Michael Lupro is keeping us honest here. Too much chit chat. Time for some Excel content. So I appreciate that, Michael, keeping us honest. We do have some phone calls lined up. Maybe we could go to the phones.
Yeah.
What do you think? We got three calls here. Let's kick off the first one. All right, here we go.
Hi, Tim and Gabrielle. This is Tim O'Sullivan. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at PC Bennett Solutions. Really appreciate you guys starting the Excel talk. I really enjoyed the first broadcast. Thought the data bar formatting idea was interesting and wanted to contribute an idea on how to format data bars in a different color. I sent you a screenshot and an email through your OG forums.
So Tim did get cut off there. We got a couple other messages that did go through, so I'm not sure what happened there, but I think he gave us enough to kick us off, and he sent us an Excel file that Gabrielle is going to show us.
Yeah, so let's turn back on screen sharing. And Excel right here. Can you see it, Tim?
Yep, I can see it.
So Tim had a pretty cool idea. So instead of using the data bars here, he just suggested using REPT, which basically repeats text any number of times. So the idea here is just to take.
And this is Tim O'Sullivan had a cool idea, right?
Yeah, Tim
not me.
Yeah, Tim O'Sullivan. So REPT, and we're going to use the letter G. So you will understand later on why we're using G. So let's repeat G based on the value. Actually, I'll use just F2 here. Okay, so G. And Tim's idea was to use the Marlet font. So Marlet is a symbol or character font. So G in the Marlet font gives us this pretty nice character. So actually, if we open the character map app in Windows and look at Marlet, we'll see all the different symbols that are available. So Marlet actually, the developers might be familiar with that, but the Marlet font is actually what Windows used to draw these symbols here on the top right section of Windows. You can see the minimize, maximize. I think nowadays it's a bit different, but this is actually what was used behind the scenes. So Tim simply suggested using the Marlet font here, along with REPT to just repeat that symbol X number of times. So this is what we have here in F2. Okay. Might actually change that. If you recall, during the last session, we discussed dynamic arrays, one of the new features in Excel 365. So here we could actually also use dynamic arrays, and instead of copying the formula down, I could just have an array reference. So from F2 to F8, enter, and this would give me the same result without having to actually copy this. So maybe one more thing we can do, and that was also part of the file that Tim shared with us, is to add conditional formatting. So let's say we want to highlight the top value. So Monday and Tuesday has the most number of birthdays, so we would like this to be highlighted. Tim, please pick a color.
Let's go with green.
Green, okay. So actually I went very quickly here. Let's back off a bit. So I will select all the data bars. I will hit conditional formatting, new rule, and we will use the last option, use a formula to determine which cells to format. So I want to highlight cells where the value here, F2, equals the max of all the values. So if it's the max, I want to format my font in green.
And I think even though you did F2 there, if I remember correctly on this, it automatically knows to increment the numbers as it goes down, right? You're just referencing the first row.
Yes, correct, yes. And the max function here, I used fixed references. So you can see that we have the dollar symbol next to the column and row number.
So it freezes it, doesn't keep moving the whole thing down.
Yeah, so I just clicked OK, and now you can see that it works. And let's say we changed one of the birthdays here. Refresh the pivot. And now only the first one is highlighted, so that works. So from there, I think we can actually extrapolate, and instead of using the Marlet font, we can use something else. And I have something in mind, Tim, that I actually discovered not too long ago when building another spreadsheet. I wanted to use a special icon as the title for a sheet. And I actually discovered that you can use emojis in Excel anywhere. So what I will do here is replay.
Could you actually show us that other sheet first? I think that's a nice visual end result.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Let's open this sheet here. So this is like very, very close to the spreadsheet that we built for another client. We wanted to have some sort of home page in the workbook. And to make it even clearer that it's the home page, I added this emoji here next to the sheet name. So, you know, it's nothing special. This is just the same type of emoji that you can type from any smartphone, but I use that as the sheet name here. So this,
did you just paste it in there? Like, did you find it on the internet, copy it, and just paste it? Is that how you got it in there?
Exactly. And this is what we're going to do here. So let me just open Edge. So let's say home emoji, enter, copy, and then you can actually paste that here in the cell, or you can paste that here as well in the sheet name. Okay, so rather than having this black dot for the birthdays, what if we use an emoji as well? So let's use Google, okay, because honestly, I don't know all the Unicode symbols, so I will just use a birthday cake emoji. Highlight that, copy, and here I will just replace G with my cake emoji. Let's press enter. And let's make sure to replace that with a font that actually has emoji. Marlet does not, but Arial should work. And now, here we go. So we have birthday cakes.
That's cool. And I think to me, this is not about making your reports hip and attractive to teenagers. This is not emojis in texting, but to me, it's all about making things visual. And most people are visual people. I myself am more of a numbers person, but I think most people are more visual. And the more you add a visual element to your reports, you attract the attention of the person looking at that report to the spots that you want them to look at. Most people aren't going to spend more than a minute glancing at your report. You have a very short window to get their attention, and colors, emojis, these kind of things I think are great at communicating on your report, not just dumping a ton of data on someone that's never going to actually get digested and looked at.
Completely agree, Tim. And, you know, this is one more tool in your arsenal for Excel reporting. Traditionally, people use conditional formatting to do visual things. So you could do icon sets. But now, thanks to these emojis, you can do pretty much anything. And then it's just a matter of having the right formula, like the one we used here, or EPT, to display your emoji. Okay, so maybe one last example using that. I could create something here in the sheet. So let's say birthday this month. So we could add a column here and say if the month of the birthday equals the month of today. And let's display the cake, otherwise no, enter. And right away we know that Sophia has her birthday this month. So that took like 15 seconds. And this is something that can only be done thanks to the emoji support in Excel.
That's cool. I like that. Hey, would you mind also showing, so Tim O'Sullivan gave us a great example on repeating characters, images. Can you also show us, we didn't get a phone message from this, but we got an email from Mohammed who helped me. I was struggling to format the pivot table. I was trying to get the winner to be highlighted in green and it wasn't working. And he showed me what I was missing.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, Tim, we can see that there's some green already. I don't know if this is because you just format. Yeah. Oh, that's right. This is this checkbox here. Yeah. So we can see that it's highlighted, but there's something that prints on top of it. There's this black data bar. And the solution that Mohammed provided is to check stop if true here. So it will just highlight the top one in green and it will not apply the black data bar to the other one.
So my green highlight was working. It was just then getting stomped out by the black highlight afterwards.
Exactly, Tim.
So that's cool. Yeah. I like that. Another way to draw your attention to the result that you're trying to highlight.
Yeah. Are we ready for the next question?
Okay, let's play it. Here's our next phone call.
Hi, Tim and Gabrielle. This is Kay Richards calling from Brothers International Foods in Rochester, New York. I did send a sample Excel file. This is probably a dumb question. I'm not an Excel guru by any means, and I don't know the answer to this. It's probably something very simple, but I lost my secret decoder ring. When I download a report from Acumatica into Excel, the columns that contain numbers won't add. It will only count. I tried reformatting them to say that they were numbers, but that didn't do anything. If you could give me the secret to that, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Kay, thank you so much for the call there. And I got to say that, when I first got that call, my first instinct was to reply and ask for more details and try to troubleshoot it. But, Gabrielle and I have talked about this. It actually takes quite a bit of effort to do these Excel Talk broadcasts, even just the way we're doing them. And it's very easy to get stuck in a creative mode where we spend a ton of time trying to come up with stuff for this. But more importantly than coming up with a super polished presentation is we want to actually keep doing it month after month. And that's a lot harder than it might seem to keep going. So what I'm coming back to on this is I didn't get into an email exchange with Kay. This isn't really like a support desk, We're just contributing our time here to the community to put on these broadcasts. And so we just took the message as is. And we do have the Excel file that she sent in to get a better clue. But we're just going to respond as is. And Kay, if you're watching this, you could drop something in the comments or you can watch the recording afterwards and let us know if we hit the mark or not. But we're just trying to keep doing this every month. And even what Gabrielle and I did today is we jumped on an hour before the broadcast started. That was our prep time. And we feel like that's doable. But in between, we're not going to be working on a ton of stuff to show here. So here we go. This is my attempt. to respond to Kay without knowing a ton more of the details. So what I think is going on here, and let me share my screen. Based on the file that Kay did share with us, which I won't share because it's got her data in it. But what I think is going on is, first of all, this is an Excel file that's exported from a generic inquiry. And Gabrielle, I got some background noise. You want to try muting? See if that fixes it. Let's see if that gets rid of it. This is an Excel file that I'm pretty sure was exported from a generic inquiry, and I'll show you why in a minute. I think that. So this isn't really a Excel thing, but you are exporting to Excel, so it becomes an Excel thing. If you look at this generic inquiry, I'm showing transfers, and this is what Kay was showing, which is why I put together this generic inquiry. I've got a transfer from this warehouse to this warehouse with this item. It's 150 quantity, but then I've got this other number here that's actually an attribute. So if I open up this item, I added an attribute that's 9,000, and I'm storing a length, which my brain looks at and knows it's a number, but Acumatica doesn't know that it's a number, because if I look up the attributes and I pull up that length 1, you'll see it's actually a text value. So again, not 100% sure if this is Kay's situation, but I think it is based on the way things are formatted. So because Acumatica looks at this as a text value, when you go to export to Excel here, wait for that to come up. So when you export to Excel, first of all, this is why I think this was a generic inquiry, because Kay's file did have the data and parameters tabs on the bottom. Then you can see here, if I were to highlight these cells, down on the bottom, I can see a total for the cells that I highlighted, because Excel knows these are numbers. But if I go find some length 1 values, if I highlight these, I only get a count. I don't get a sum, because Excel thinks they're text. Now, I didn't actually try this, and we've got some other stuff to cover as well, so I don't think I'm going to try this. But one thing you could do back on the definition of the generic inquiry, you could try changing this to be a formula that casts it to a number, like a CDEC will do that. Actually, you know what? I will try it on the fly here. I'll just add a couple of new columns. Let's do both examples at once, then it won't take much time. So let's try this. If we put this in a formula, let's see what happens. This is try 1. And then the other one, this one I know works. We'll use the same field, but we'll use the schema field. And the schema field is how you format something in a generic inquiry. And we'll tell it to format the value according to a different field. And we know that quantity, the QTY field, is working. So let's just use that. Tell it to format this as the QTY format. So this will be try 2. And let's try that again. So run that and export that to Excel again. Looks like my try 2 didn't work. Okay, sorry, hold on. I need to disable this. Try that again. It won't let me do the same field twice. Okay, so already you can see that this is still text, but this one where I did the schema field, it knows it's a number. So let's see what happens when we go to Excel.
Tim, there's one major issue with this approach, but I will let you finish and explain. And maybe you already know it.
Okay, let me know in a second here. So it looks like the try 1 doing the CDEC doesn't work, because I still am just getting a count. But the one where we use the schema field, when I highlight this, I am able to see a total now. So I think that's what was happening on there with your issue, Kay, but you can chime in the comments or let us know by email. What's your issue, Gabrielle?
Yeah, so by setting the schema field or doing CDEC, if you have anything that's invalid in the attributes, it will crash during export. So I don't remember exactly if it will create an issue when you're doing an Excel export, but if you're using OData to access these inquiries, there is a bug that's present in most Acumatica versions except the most recent ones, where it will basically drop the connection completely. So you will get an HTTP error while it's loading from this inquiry because one of the type conversions failed. And actually, I'm still puzzled that Acumatica is missing the ability to have numeric attributes. This is a very, very common use case. Even internally at Vilexo, I use attributes to store things like partner discounts. And once in a while, the accountant will make like a slight typo in the attribute, and this will, crash the generic inquiry. So you have to be very careful.
Good, great point. Yeah, it is a text field. It's going to take anything.
Yeah.
A couple of thoughts on there. One of them is to go back here and use the regular expression. So I can never remember these off the top of my head, but regular expressions are like an old Unix thing. They're incredibly powerful. You can design them to be very specific on what you're allowed to enter in there. And this one might be, it might be like a 09 star. It's some kind of format like this, where you could design it to only allow numbers to get entered. You'd actually get an error then on the data entry. That's one idea.
Okay.
Another idea would be to go back to the generic inquiry. And I can't think of logic when the camera is running. My brain doesn't work while the camera's on. But, we could probably come up with something that does a basic if statement to check somehow if this is a number. If so, then go ahead and return the value. Otherwise, return a 0 or an empty or something like that. So there's two ideas on that.
Or instead of using attributes, you can simply create a proper field using the Acumatica customization tools.
Perfect. All right. So I think that's it on that example. Now we've got one more phone call. And for those Michael Lupros out there, this is going to be a chit chat one. We're not going to have something to show on this one, but in our defense, we do call this Excel talk, not Excel show. So that's what we're going to do in this next segment. Here we go.
Hi, Tim and Gabrielle. This is Mike Nesson with SWK Technologies. I have a possible Excel question / problem for the Excel hotline. I ran across a website called Science. They had a headline on one of their blog posts that stated 20% of genetic studies are in error due to Excel. It reminded me of several studies I've seen recently, one in the UK, another one by Forbes magazine. They found error rates in Excel spreadsheets of 54 and 88% respectively in the spreadsheets that they audited, which if true, it just strikes me as crazy. And it led me to two questions and to the hotline. The first one, do we have a silicon-based pandemic in a way in our spreadsheets and in the way that we seem to be misusing spreadsheets? It sure seems to be a widespread problem or issue. Second question is, if I'm not exaggerating the problem, if I'm not exaggerating this problem with Excel errors, and it exists, how can Acumatica help vaccinate us, so to speak, against the systemic problems in how we're using Excel? I don't know if that's useful for you guys in the hotline, but throw it out there in case it is. And thanks, you guys. I'm really enjoying these Excel sessions, getting a great deal out of them, and really appreciate it. Last but not least, Happy New Year. Everybody have a great one. Thanks a lot, you guys. Take care.
So thanks, Mike, for that question. He did send a link to the specific study he was looking at. If I'm remembering right, the number was 54% error rate in Excel, something like that. And I didn't grab the link because I've seen a lot of these. There's a lot of these out there showing how potentially dangerous Excel can be. And Gabrielle and I haven't talked about this at all yet, but I'm going to start off with a couple thoughts, and then Gabrielle, you can take it from there. My first thought on this is when I see these kind of posts about how bad Excel is with errors, my first thought is, who created the post? And a lot of times it's a business intelligence software
Render,
tool
yeah.
that created the most, because they know that BI software tools know that their number one competitor is what is still the world's most popular BI tool, which is Microsoft Excel. So you see that a lot from BI vendors. Then the other side of it is, it is very true, because you can do whatever you want in Excel. And if you don't copy everything down correctly, or you accidentally change a value in the middle somewhere, you could totally cause an error in your spreadsheet. But, another thought I have on that, if you go look at Wall Street and investment bankers who are analyzing companies and deciding where to invest real money, what are they using to do that? They're still using Microsoft Excel. So that calculation engine is still largely what is powering the investment decisions on Wall Street. And to me, that's pretty reliable. And then a third thought I have on that is, if you look at the ERP space, you have very similar articles about failure rates of XYZ ERP product. A popular target of those type of comments is SAP and Oracle. But if you think about it, a big reason why they have so many bad implementations is simply because they have such a large volume of implementations. So they're a big target because they have a huge user base. And I think Excel is kind of similar. You hear a lot more Excel horror stories simply because there's a lot more people using Excel. Now, then on the vaccination side of things, I think we could talk about OData, Velixo, et cetera, but I've talked enough, Gabrielle. I'll punt to you for your thoughts.
I'm on mute. I was on mute. Yeah, actually, Tim, when I listened to the message, that reminded me of an article that I read last year. It was at the beginning of the pandemic. And since Mike mentioned vaccines, so I thought I would bring up this article. So why using Microsoft tool caused COVID test results to be lost? And this happened in England. And, by now the numbers don't look that high, knowing how many COVID cases are around, but they lost like over 16,000 tests. And if you read the article, you realize that they were actually using Microsoft Excel as a database. And instead of using the most recent Excel file format, they were still using the old XLS file that is limited to 65,000 rows. So as soon as they had 65,000 cases, well, their system stopped tracking the number of positive cases. So here, and this is something that I keep repeating as well. I don't think Excel should be used as a database. I think Excel is great for number crunching, to analyze data. But if you're using it as a database, if you're using it as, an ERP system, I think you're doing it wrong. ERP systems like Excel, using Excel as an ERP system. That's crazy, but there's actually people doing that. Yeah, learn how to create this ERP application with Excel. So there's actually a 2-hour video on YouTube of how you can actually create an ERP system with Excel. So, in my opinion, like, this is part of the problem. So it's using Excel for something that it's not designed for. Excel, yes, Excel can be used to track, lots of data. You can use it as some sort of a database, but at the end of the day, there are much better systems for that. Excel is great, and you mentioned like the Wall Street analyst. It's great for number crunching, looking at data and trying to make sense of it. This is the same message that I keep repeating when I present Velixo. You're using Velixo with Excel to look at your Acumatica data. Acumatica is your central system of records. It is your single source of truth. Everything is validated. Everything is audited. We're just using Excel to create shiny dashboards, to get data, make calculations. But like, you need to use a real ERP system, a real accounting system, or a real database backend to track and validate your data.
I couldn't agree more. I feel the same way. Excel is a terrible database. I think that's a reason for a lot of the horror stories. It's a great reporting tool, though. And then it all comes down to structure, whether you're using generic inquiries to feed the Power Pivot area, or whether you're using Velixo, which is also depending on generic inquiries. You're now bringing structure into Excel so that you reduce the chance of having these bad formulas. but you still have to write the formulas, right? You still have to do the calculations. You still have to review what you did. And because Excel is so popular, there are a lot of people who, don't design things correctly, and then things go bad, right?
Yeah, and even when you're just using Excel as a reporting tool, there are still things that you can do to if I may use Mike's term, like to vaccinate yourself against a bad report. For example, if you're building a profit and loss report using Excel, well, you might verify or add a check that compares your net income with the year-to-date net income account in Acumatica. If there's a discrepancy, it means that you're missing something. If this is a trial balance, debits should equal credits, and your assets should equal your liability. So it's very easy to add checks like that in Excel, and this is something that that I like doing. I will add a formula. So if this line does not equal this line here, like I display a big message in red, like your report is out of balance.
Yeah.
Check. If for whatever reason you missed something, there's an error in the calculation, this will usually pick this up. And no matter the tool that you're using, if it's like that fancy $1 million BI solution, you can still have problems like that. At the end of the day, there's someone that's building the model, that's loading the data. There are many things that can go wrong, and it's very important to have checks and balances.
So I think I might have mentioned this last month, but I'll mention it again on the whole database versus reporting angle with Excel. There's a great interview actually on the same podcast that I was just on that I linked to earlier. I'm going to put it in the chat here. Here's an interview on the same podcast with Bill Jelen, who runs the website MrExcel.com. It was one of the first online forum softwares in the early sites in the early 90s. And what's interesting when you listen to his story is when he got into Excel, it was as a reporting tool, not as a database. And sure, it's the early 90s that he's talking about. So he actually it was Lotus Notes at the time. And he used it because the $100,000 BI product that they were using couldn't get the reports that they needed. So he used the most popular button in that BI product, which was export to Lotus. And then he used Lotus to actually create the reports. And then that turned into Excel. But I think it's a story. And I think it's interesting that one of the most popular Excel websites out there, MrExcel.com, was born out of exactly that situation. My reporting is not getting me what I need. And so he threw Excel at the problem.
and it is still extremely relevant today. I'm probably much younger than Mr. Excel, but early in my career, I ran into this. And again, with Acumatica, and this is something that I see with every single system in the world. Like the export to Excel button is really an important tool, and you're not going to take Excel out of people's hands.
And case in point, our second phone call there from Kay was on an export to Excel issue. So we got a comment here from Toon. What do you think? Do we want to try fielding that, or do we want to stick to our respond to phone calls so we don't have to scramble on the fly?
Oh yeah, let's stick to phone calls. I think it's what we agreed on when we started this show. Toon, if you have a question, just call 833 Excel Talk, leave a message. We will play it live on the show, and we will definitely be looking at Gantt charts. Actually, I might say a little something here right away, because I already the wheels are turning. I'm already thinking. I've had numerous requests in the last few months regarding Gantt charts and planning. Actually, am I already saying too much, Tim? Should we wait for the next episode?
No, I think so. I think we can follow our rule by not showing stuff. I think that's where we get in trouble.
Good.
I think we're okay to keep with the talk part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a product called Smartsheet that is integrated with Acumatica, but it sounds like this is overkill and that the integration does not work as well as most people would like. So I've been starting to get requests on, doing the same thing with Excel. So just having a basic Gantt chart displayed, plus the ability to change project and task start dates and end dates from a spreadsheet. So Tim, as you know, we have something called WriteBack in Velixo. Right now, it's available for project forecast, GL, and budgets. And what we decided to do is add something called generic WriteBack. So basically the equivalent of generic inquiries, but the other way around. So allowing you to update any field from any screen from a spreadsheet. And
So hold on, before you go further, I had a note if we had time to ask you about that, because I haven't had a chance. So
Okay.
I'm glad it came up. Keep going.
Yeah,
'Cause I don't know anything about it. I'm curious. Yeah, tell me more.
So generic WriteBack, the idea is that you're able to update or create records in Acumatica. And this is something that could be used to set project start dates, end dates, to scheduling. And Excel is not going to give you like a perfect Gantt chart like you can in Microsoft Project or other specialized tools, but you can still do something. And I think that would be an amazing question for the next show. It will take quite a bit more time than the questions we had today to properly address, but I think that's a great challenge. Tune, please call, leave your message, and I think we're already set for the next Excel Talk session.
Yeah, I've got a thought too on a Excel template I've seen out there, and that'll remind us to dig it up on a Gantt chart specifically. You've also got, Tune, a cost break analysis question. Maybe you could throw that all into. Maybe you could call in twice. I don't know what we want to do there, but get it on the voice line, and then it'll get it in our list to respond to.
Yeah, cool. I think
So-
you had something written down for me, Tim.
Well, yeah. So since we've got some time here, can we at least chat about the WriteBack? So here's a scenario I had at a previous company I worked at. We weren't using Acumatica. We were using Sage 500, which had a SQL backend. And we had a planning process that was very painful for people. So what they were always doing is exporting the report to Excel. And we were the company I worked for built these large tunnel boring machines that are longer than a football field and take months and months and months to build. So there's a lot of planning and things are constantly shifting around. So a lot of it comes down to managing your dates on when suppliers are expecting to receive certain things and when you think you're going to have everything you need to build the certain components. So we had reports that would give them all the components. Think of it like as a flat bill of materials. And they would have all the components. They'd have it broken up into categories. We actually use project tasks for that. But then what they would do is they would export it to Excel because they needed to manipulate it. And Excel is just the easiest way to manipulate the data. But then they didn't have a way to bring it back in. So then they actually started hiring people just to take the manual Excel files and key the data back into the ERP system, right? So what I ended up doing is building an Excel file using VBA that allowed them to simply write back the numbers right back into the ERP system. And they loved it. It was great. And so I'm very interested in this scenario. So maybe you could tell me more about how this write back thing, how you foresee it playing out in Velixo.
Yeah. So Tim, as I was mentioning earlier, like WriteBack is already something that is part of Velixo. In the current version, we address three scenarios that are very important for our user base. So we work with accountants, controllers, people that are involved in the budgeting process, forecasting, month-end closing. The idea behind WriteBack actually came about, I'd say, like 6 months after I launched the first version of Velixo. And let me share my screen. I will actually show you what prompted us to add WriteBack, and this will help me introduce where we're going next with the generic WriteBack. I have a sheet up. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So you can see the title here, Liability Insurance Accrual WriteBack. I took a real file that one of our clients was using, actually like Velixo client number 2, still with us, like I think 99.9% of the Velixo clients. Very happy. Hi, Sophie, by the way, if you're watching. So Sophie had this workbook where she was looking at the revenue for each branch and then using that to calculate an accrual for, again, each branch. I think they had like something like 40 or 50 locations. So in the spreadsheet was a list of all the branches, revenue for the current month, and then very simple formula. So we multiply that by a rate that's here. We add the sales tax, so 3.2%. And she was using that to prepare a GL entry. That, as you would expect, she was manually typing into Acumatica. So something very similar to what you were describing earlier. So when she started using Velixo, the product solved the first part of the puzzle for her. So retrieving and calculating the revenue for each branch. So without Velixo, she would have to go to a report in Acumatica, run it for the branch, type in the total, and repeat for every single location. So as you know, in Velixo, we have these formulas. Once you have the formulas in your spreadsheet, well, you just need to change the period and everything recalculates. So when I saw this spreadsheet, I said, oh, wow, it would be amazing if we could simply take this, click a button in the toolbar, and write this back. But since my users are not exactly programmers, I could not expect them to write VBA or do any type of coding. So what we came up with is the concept of write back templates. So in Velixo, there's a button that you can click, and that creates a template for you. And this template, as you will see, closely matches the screen in Acumatica. So in this case, it's the journal transaction. So users just need to fill in the blanks, add the amounts, and you could type some amount manually, or you could reference another cell or have a formula like we do here in the liability insurance accrual calculation. So this is pulling the number from G23, and this is pulling from another cell, and so on, okay? So this is basically a template, and then the button is equivalent to the VBA logic that you were mentioning in your intro, Tim. So this is what you wrote. It will do the same thing. Instead of writing to a SQL database, in this case, it uses the Acumatica APIs to create a transaction. It also validates it. So if you're missing something, we'll let you know. So it just creates a batch, and then it creates a transaction directly in Acumatica. So that's how WriteBack started. And eventually we expanded that to work with other scenarios like budgeting, project forecasting. And in the next version of Velixo, we will also be introducing something called generic WriteBack. And generic WriteBack lets you work with any import scenario in Acumatica. So that means updating project dates, creating customers, updating prices. You could even create projects, sales orders, and do a complete orchestration through Excel. And one more thing that we are also doing is making it possible to do writebacks by simply using a formula. So instead of having to work with predefined tables and templates, we're adding formulas like this one here, equal writeback, where you basically specify your Acumatica screen ID, the name of your import scenario, and you can just specify all the fields and values to be written back. So that gives you even more flexibility for writing back data.
When I see that write back, so I'm curious about this, and if no one else is, well, sorry, I'm going to ask about it anyways. The write back formula there, you could take and feed it with a dynamic array.
Yes, you can feed it with a dynamic array. It can be a 2D array. You can just have the values. And by the way,
I like this
2D array. So let's say you were to create 5 inventory items. You could have let's say 10 columns across and 10 rows in one array that you send to this formula. So it's very powerful. And I think in the next session, if we have a recording from Antun, we can use it to create a Gantt chart and update project dates. I think that would be a great example.
Yeah, and so I was wondering too, when I heard about this from someone else, I wasn't sure how true it really was. So it looks like it really is on the radar. I see it on your menu. And I like that you mentioned it would be used import scenarios. So that means I mean, to me, another common example would be just updating address information. I just give me a dump of all my vendor addresses or something, or customer addresses, and I just want to update them in Excel and write it back. Sounds like it just sort of takes care of the middle part of it. You just send it right to the import scenario.
Yeah. Another example of something that you could do with this is quotations. There are many companies that use Excel for quotation because they have their own model. Let's say you're a roofing contractor. So there's a bunch of things that you need to measure, and then you select colors, types, and then you have your labor. And this is something that people will often do in Excel. I know that there are like specialized quoting solutions, but they're often overkill for small and medium businesses. So they just use Excel and then create a quote manually. So again, this is another example where you could use generic writeback. If you combine that with generic inquiries and the flexibility of Excel, so you could access your current price list from Acumatica. Remember what we said a few minutes ago, that Excel should not be used as a database. So if you're doing estimating from Excel, well, use Acumatica, get the pricing from Acumatica, get your customer list and discount from Acumatica. At the end, just use the writeback functions to push the resulting quote, create a project in Acumatica.
Well, I'm glad that came up because I really like that scenario. To me, you're almost using Excel as middleware there, right? And what I like about it is Excel's calculation engine is so good. It's so easy to write formulas in Excel. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, the pricing situation, there's another one. Let's put our pricing logic in Excel as a middleware solution, dump it out, bring it back in. I like that. Well, that's cool. I think that's all I had on my list for today. We're up against the top of the hour. Just a reminder that this is Excel Talk. And so we don't have a ton to show today, but I think what'll happen, Gabrielle, is it's really on you all watching. The more of you call in and leave us messages, the less chit chat we'll have, the more substance we'll have. So it's up to you. Leave those messages, and that'll get us to prepare something to show. And but as long as you keep calling in month after month, we'll have more content to cover. Anything else you want to close with? Flying out tomorrow, get some rest, have a good time at Summit.
I'm looking forward to it. I feel invincible, like double vaxxed and immunized on COVID. I'm ready to, as one of my clients said last week, ready to lick the slot machines.
Well, going to Las Vegas, you're going to need that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for squeezing us in between Brazil and Las Vegas. And leave those messages, 833 Excel Talk, and we'll pick it up again next month. If you look at augforums.com/Excel Talk, you will see we scheduled out the next 2 months. So we put some dates out there. But between now and the next broadcast, please leave us some voicemails so we can respond on the show.
Thanks, everyone.
Right.
See you next
Take
week.
care, everyone.
Stop by the Velixo booth and make sure to come say hi.
Bye for now.
Bye.